Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. It's me again, V. And for today's video, I'm finally going to show you how to create this cute little amigurumi from the game Among Us. So here are the materials that you'll need for this project. You will need a yarn in any color of your choice for the body, but for this project, I will be using an orange milk cotton yarn, but of course, you may use any color or any type of yarn that you prefer. You will also need a gray color yarn for the goggles part of our amigurumi, and also a black colored yarn that we will use for the rim on the goggles part of our amigurumi. The next thing you will need is a small piece of white yarn. You may use your scrap yarns for this, but I will be using an 8-ply fine cotton yarn because I don't have an ordinary yarn yet and I'm just using what I already have. So we will use this little white yarn to put this little shiny detail on the goggles part of our amigurumi. To be honest, I'm not really that mad that I used a different yarn for the details because using this 8-ply fine cotton yarn really gives that sleek detail on the goggles of our amigurumi. And of course, you will need some stuffing to stuff your amigurumi. You will also need a yarning needle. I don't have the actual yarning needle yet, so I will be using this big suture needle that we already have at home to complete this project. But of course, you may also use whatever you have at home or if you already have an actual yarning needle. And lastly, some scissors. And now we are ready to begin our tutorial. We are going to start it off with a magic circle. Chain 1, and then we are going to put 6 single crochet inside our circle. After our 6 single crochet, we can now pull the tail end of our circle to close it off. I like to pull mine tightly. And then we are going to slip stitch into our very first stitch to connect our circle. Do a chain 1, and then we are going to put 2 single crochet on the same stitch. And then we are going to repeat that all around. So we are basically increasing. At the end, you must have 12 stitches in total. So you are going to count all of your stitches. Make sure that you have all 12. After that, you are going to slip stitch into the very first stitch in the beginning again to connect the circle. We're going to chain 1 and then add 1 single crochet in every stitch all around. So we are no longer increasing at this point. So after that, this is where you'll see your project start curling up on itself. And then of course you are going to slip stitch again into the very first stitch. And then you are going to chain 1. And then you are going to do 5 more rows of single crochet all around with a total of 6 rows with no increase. Remember to slip stitch whenever you reach the very beginning stitch and chain 1 before you start another row. So you will do that at the end and the beginning of every row. You are going to slip stitch into the first stitch and then chain 1, and then that's the start of your row. After you've done your 5 rows, you are now going to slip stitch again into the first stitch, and then we are going to fast it off in here. So you are going to close off your stitches in this, and then you are now going to cut your yarn, and your first leg is done. And now you are going to make another one of this, but when you do, you are not going to cut it off from the ball of yarn because we are going to use that to connect the 2 legs of our amigurumi together. So I will see you again once you've done your other leg, and we are going to connect it to each other. So now that we have our 2 legs together, like I said before, you are not going to cut off the last leg from the ball of yarn. So what you are going to do is you are going to chain 1. And then you are going to stick your hook into any stitch onto the other leg, but me, I prefer to stick it into the middle and the 2 legs facing each other. After you do that, you are going to put a single crochet onto that stitch, and that connects our two legs together. Now the next thing you are going to do here is that you are going to single crochet around this other leg where we just connected our left leg. You're going to single crochet around that. And now here on the last stitch, after you've single crocheted around the leg, you are going to chain one. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the other leg and you are going to insert your hook right beside the stitch of the chain one on that leg. You are going to make a single crochet on that leg, and then you are going to single crochet around that other leg. So basically that makes a more secure connection on our two legs. So after you have crocheted around that leg, you have now reached the end point or the last stitch, and now you are in front, and what you are going to do is you are going to insert your hook on that chain one right there, and then you are going to slip stitch on that chain one hole. So this is basically the start of our new row. So then we will be working on rows and not using stitch markers that works on spiral. So here we're working on rows, so this indicates our first row, and what we are going to do again after we slip stitch, we chain one, and then we are going to single crochet around the whole leg. Now that the two legs are connected, you can single crochet around them as one. So that back end of the leg, do not be confused. All you have to do is just keep single crocheting as usual on the stitches, insert your hook on the chain hole, and then single crochet as normal. After this, you won't come into any more confusion because our two legs will really be connected, and it is the start of our body. So you see, single crochet as normal, and then you go forward as is. So you have reached the front part again, and you reach the beginning, our very first stitch. So you know what to do. You're gonna slip stitch into that very first stitch, and then you are going to chain one and single crochet around the body again. So you are going to repeat this 10 more times. So that creates our body. So you are going to single crochet around that whole thing 10 more times, which equals to 11 rows of single crochet with no increase. So I will see you again after you've done your 10 more rows of single crochet all around, and of course don't forget to slip stitch when you reach your very beginning stitch again, and do a chain 1 because in that way we will no longer need a stitch marker and it's easier to see where we have started and where we will end our row. So just a little recap. You will continue to single crochet all around in rows, and whenever you reach your beginning stitch, you will slip stitch and then chain 1, and that's the start of your another row. So you will do that 10 more times to build our body. And when I come back to see you, our body will most likely be done and we will start to decrease to form the cylinder shape of our amigurumi. So after you're done with your 10 rows of single crochet, as per usual, we are going to slip stitch into our very first stitch to connect our circle. And then when we chain 1, we are just gonna leave a long loop because we are gonna stuff it first before we start decreasing. So at this point, we are done and we have completed the base body of our amigurumi. And now what we just need to do on the next step is to decrease so that we can form the half circle shape or cylinder shape head of our Among Us amigurumi. But now let us insert our stuffing first so that later on it wouldn't be so hard to stuff the bottommost part of our amigurumi or the legs. And as we decrease gradually, we will add more stuffing from point to point. Okay, so now we are going to decrease. Make sure that you are decreasing with the chain 1 on your hook. So what we're gonna do in this row is that we are going to single crochet on the first 2 stitches. And then we are going to put 2 stitches together with a single crochet. So to do that, we are going to insert our hook in 1 stitch, pull up a yarn, and then insert our hook into the next stitch and pull up a yarn. You have 3 loops on your hook. You are going to yarn over, pull through all 3. So basically that is the pattern that we will follow on this row all around. Again, you will single crochet on the next 2 stitches and then you are going to pull 1 single crochet together in the next 2 stitches. So single crochet, and then pulling 2 together. After you are done with that row, we already know what to do. We are going to slip knot into our very first stitch to join our circle and then chain 1, and then we are ready to move on to our next row. So on this row, what you are going to do is you are going to single crochet on 1 stitch and then you are going to pull 2 together. So you single crochet and then you pull through 2 stitches together like so. So you stick your hook inside, pull up a yarn, stick your hook into another stitch, pull up a yarn, and then pull your yarn onto all 3 hoops. So this pattern is an alternating single crochet on 1 stitch and then pulling up 2 stitches on the next. So that's just the alternating pattern that you will do on this row all around. After we have done that on that row, we are now moving on to the next. And again, when you meet your very first stitch, you do a slip stitch, chain 1, and we will now do this different pattern for this row. But before we do that, we are going to stuff our amigurumi more so that we are able to make sure that we fill it to the brim. because we don't want our amigurumi to be less stuffing and look lifeless. So on this row, what we are going to do is we are just going to pull through 2 stitches all around. So you put your hook into 1 stitch, pull up a yarn, and then put your hook into the next stitch, pull up a yarn. You have 3 loops on your hook and pull it through all together. And basically that's what we're going to do all around, and I'll see you when you're done with your round. After that, you already know what we're going to do. We're going to slip stitch into our very first stitch, but this time around we are going to cut it off from our ball of yarn because that is actually our last row. And what we're going to do next is we are just going to stitch the hole close. That's why I'm leaving a long tail end here, because I'm going to use the same tail end to sew the hole close. So of course we are going to attach our yarn tail end into a darning needle. Okay, but before we do that, before we finally sew it close, I'm gonna stuff my amigurumi one more time. From the inside of the circle, we are going through the back loop of each stitch all around and coming out on the outside of the circle. So as you see from the inside, we're grabbing that back loop and going outside. So from the inside, going through that back loop and out on the outside again. So we are just going to do this pattern all around, and then when we pull the string, you will see that our hole will close on itself. So we're now pulling it, and voila! Our amigurumi is now finally sealed. Okay, so what I like to do here to secure my ends is that I'm going to insert my needle anywhere in the project and come out anywhere, and that way it is ensured that your tail end is hidden safe inside your amigurumi. So now we are ready to cut it off. And lastly, you will see that we have this little gap here in between the legs of our amigurumi, and that is normal to happen when you are making a doll with 2 legs that you will attach together. So in this way, we will just need again a piece of yarn the same color as our body and a yarning needle. So what we are going to do here is we're basically covering up the hole with this piece of yarn. So you're just gonna insert there from anywhere in the body, so the end of this yarn is inside the amigurumi, and then you're just going to sew or cover the hole with a stitch like so. So when you're done with that, again, as I like to do, I'm going to poke my needle inside the project, come out anywhere, and in this way, I have a secure tail end inside the amigurumi. And of course, I'm going to snip off the excess tail end, and that ensures our amigurumi. So we are basically done with the basic body of our amigurumi. What's just missing is our backpack and our goggles. So that's what we are going to do next. We are going to make our backpack, and of course we are going to use the same color yarn we used on our body. So we are going to do a slip knot, and then we are going to chain 9. And then we are going to single crochet until the end of our row. And then on our very last stitch, you are going to add 2 more single crochet on the same stitch so that your project turns around to the other side. And then you are going to single crochet all along that side until you reach the very end stitch. And again, on that stitch, you will add 2 more single crochet to balance it out on the other side. After that, you will slip stitch into that very first stitch that we had to close it off. You're gonna chain 1 and then single crochet all around this circle-like or oval-like shape. When you reach that very first stitch again, you are going to slip stitch and chain 1, and you are going to repeat single crocheting all around this oval shape 6 more times. So after you've done your 6 more rows, this is how it would look like. As you can see, it is just a basic square, which is already good for our backpack. So here we're just gonna tie it off, and then we are going to cut a long tail end of yarn because we are going to use this to sew close our backpack and also to sew it onto our body. But of course, before we sew it on, we are going to put a little bit of stuffing into our backpack. The stuffing depends on how much you want to put onto your backpack, how bulky you want it. Me, I'm just going to put the right amount so it's not so bulky and not so flat. Then of course we are going to insert a needle into our yarn, and now we are going to sew it close. So what we're going to do is we're just going to insert onto both the outer loop of this. As you can see, I'm grabbing those two outer loops and I'm inserting the stitch there. So this is basically what we're going to do to close this one off. We're just going to grab those two outer loops, as you can see, and going through it. So on that very last closing stitch, what you just want to do is that you're going to poke your needle into one corner of your project and come out on the other side, because basically we are using the four corners to sew it on into our body. So we are sewing the backpack on each corner. So then you're just gonna want to know where you want to place your backpack onto the body. Place it there where you want it, and then you're just gonna sew it normally onto the spot that you want to sew it on. Make sure it's on the perfect spacing, right at the center. So we're just sewing normally. Then after that, what you're going to do is you're going to insert your needle through the backpack again and come out on the other side or the other corner. So from there, you will sew it again on that corner on the body. So you're coming out right there, and then we are going to sew it on this side. So at this point, my curved needle was really helpful. It's really easier to poke it inside the projects. And again, we're just going to sew it normally, like normal on this side. And then we are going to do this until we reach all four corners of our backpack. Now we are moving on to our next corner. Again, you poke your needle into the backpack and you come out on the other side or the other corner. Now after we're done sewing it on all four corners, of course, as I like to do, I'm going to poke my needle on the project, come out anywhere, and then pull it so that again we have a more secure tail end. After that, I'm now gonna snip it off. Whoopsies. Okay, so we have a little tail end that is on here, and this is the tail end from when we started the backpack. So what I did is I tied a knot there just to secure the ends as well, and then I am going to hide my ends inside the amigurumi. So again, so it gives us a more seamless look. It's really quite hard hiding your ends, and I know fellow crocheters feel the same, but we also know that it gives us a much better quality projects. Oopsies again. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to move on to the goggles. So I'm using a gray yarn, of course, for our goggles. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip knot, and we are going to chain 9. So put your hook into that loop. Okay, we are chaining 9. So I've used a slightly thin yarn here, that's why I adjusted my stitches, but of course you can adjust the pattern as to the size that you want. So what we did there was we single crocheted up to the end of the row, and then we are going to put 2 more single crochet at the end, at the very last stitch, to turn our project around. And then we are going to single crochet on that other side as well, and after we did that, of course we are going to balance this side to the other side, so putting 2 more single crochet in there. Okay, and then we are going to make a slip stitch onto that very beginning stitch like we always do. And then we are going to chain 1. So what we're going to do is we are going to single crochet around but up until this point, because we are going to do something a little different there. So we're going to single crochet to the sides, and when we reach that point on the other side, we are going to add 3 more single crochet on that very top stitch. So that's like an increase, that very point of the oval. But after we did those 3 single crochets, we will continue to single crochet as normal on its side. So single crochet as normal until we reach the other end, the very last stitch, before we slip stitch into the beginning. So once we've reached that very last stitch, we will add 3 more single crochet like we did on the other side, and then of course we are going to slip stitch into our beginning stitch, and then we are going to single crochet all around with no increases, and just it's just like a border of single crochet all around. We won't increase on any side or anywhere. And yeah, so after you've done that, we are going to grab a black yarn before you slip stitch into the very first stitch, so you won't do that. So what you're going to do is do what as I did here. You inserted a black yarn into the hole, and then you are going to grab that gray line tight. So what I did is I slip stitch using the black yarn instead of the gray one, and then I chain 1. I put a single crochet onto the same stitch, and then of course continue to single crochet all around. So now we are able to single crochet all around just to give our black yarn rim on our goggles. So yeah. So after we did that, you are going to want to slip stitch into the very beginning stitch and not leave it hanging. As you see right there, we're going to slip stitch so that it gives us a more connected look. There will be no gaps. And then we are actually going to knot it here, and you are gonna want to leave a long tail end again because we are going to use this same strand to sew our goggles on into our body. So I'm leaving enough room. Okay, but before we do that, we are going to add our white shiny details on our goggles part, right? So I'm using my fine cotton yarn here because that's only the kind of yarn that I have in the color white. So you are just going to eyeball it how horizontally you want it, how slant you want it. So me, I want it this way. So I'm gonna go over it one more time. And then what I'm going to do is that I am going to tie the two whites, and so that it is more secure and it won't get loose on the goggles. So as you see, we have a lot of strands here. We have a lot of tail ends, but don't get confused. And actually, I really like that part because I'll have more extra stuffing on the goggles, natural stuffing, and we wouldn't have to add so much later on. Okay, it's now time to sew it on into our body. So I'm using my other finished project just to know where I want to place it. Okay, so you're just going to sew it on into the body as usual. So I just tried to eyeball this one. But of course, you are going to leave a small gap, and we are going to stuff it first before we close it off entirely. So after that, after I've sewn it close, I am tying a knot so I have a more secured ending. So after I've tied that knot, I am going to poke my needle again into the project, come out anywhere, and then cut my tail end from there. And we've done it, you guys. We have now finally completed and finished the basic body of our Among Us amigurumi, and that's all that there is on this video actually, because it's already too long. So I'm just gonna post a separate video for the tutorial of our plant headgear, so stay tuned for that. If you like this video and you made your own out of this, and if it's helpful, please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. So that's it for the tutorial, you guys. Don't you think this just turned out so cute? So I'm really proud of how this turned out. This is actually my first amigurumi ever that I have crocheted. And I'm really glad that it turns out really cute, and yeah. So again, you guys, I got the inspiration to create these amigurumis from this photo right there. So I tried to recreate it, and here's how it turned out. And I'm glad that I could share the process with you guys. And if you also want to recreate this to make one of your own, then I hope that this tutorial has helped you. And if it did, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more contents like this. I'll see you on my next one. Bye! Don't forget to subscribe!